After raising my daughter alone for 7 years following my ex-wife's sudden departure, she now wants me out of her life for her wedding. I am David, 42 years old, and I spent 7 years raising my daughter alone after my ex-wife abandoned us. I did everything for her from school drop-offs to staying up all night when she was sick. Then, out of nowhere, my ex-wife reappeared, just in time for my daughter's wedding. At first, I thought it was just an awkward reunion, but then my daughter told me something that broke me. She did not want me at the wedding. Instead, she wanted to walk down the aisle with her real mother. I was crushed. I had been there through everything, and now I was being cast aside like I never mattered. But I was not going to just sit back and let this happen. What followed was a painful revelation, a betrayal I never saw coming, and a decision that changed everything. 7 years ago, a woman walked out on her family without a single glance back. No explanation, no warning, just a hastily scribbled note about needing to find herself. What she really found was a new life, one that did not include the child she left behind. Meanwhile, the one she abandoned had to grow up without a mother, left to wonder why she was not enough to make her stay. Life moved on. The world does not stop spinning just because someone decides they no longer want to be part of it. Birthdays were celebrated without her, school events came and went, milestones were reached, first lost tooth, first day of middle school, first heartbreak, and she was nowhere to be found. The absence became normal, a dull ache rather than a sharp wound. The family that remained built something strong from the wreckage, a bond forged through years of unwavering love and devotion. And then, out of nowhere, she returned. No remorse, no shame, just an expectation that she could step back in as if she had never left. What was once a gaping wound had scarred over, but she did not care. She wanted to rewrite history, to erase the years of absence with a few carefully chosen words. It was not enough to simply return. She wanted to reclaim something she had long since abandoned. What no one could have expected was that she was not back for love, not back for redemption. She was back to take what did not belong to her. The years after her departure were not easy. A single parent raising a child alone is never a simple journey. But with determination, love, and more late nights than anyone could count, a stable life was built. There were sacrifices, of course. Dreams were put on hold, promotions turned down in favor of stability, and personal time became a foreign concept. But every struggle was worth it. The first time she said, "I love you, Daddy," the way her little hand fit perfectly into his, the pride on her face when she aced a school project, all of it made every hardship feel insignificant. She grew into an intelligent, compassionate young girl. She excelled in school, made friends easily, and had a heart big enough to love despite knowing what it was like to be left behind. She asked about her mother in the early years, wondering where she was, why she left. The answers were always honest, but never cruel. She had her own struggles, sweetheart, but we're going to be just fine. And they were. Through scraped knees and science fairs, through bedtime stories and whispered fears about the future, they became a team. Every school play had a proud father in the audience. Every sports match had someone cheering her name the loudest. She was never alone. Family stepped in when needed, grandparents, close friends who became like uncles and aunts, but at the core of it all, it was the two of them against the world. Then, one day, a message appeared. An unfamiliar number, a simple request. "We need to talk." It was her. After 7 years of silence, she had finally decided to reach out. But not to apologize, not to mend what she had broken. She had an entirely different agenda. At first, there was hesitation. Why now? What could she possibly have to say after all these years? Curiosity got the better of him, and against his better judgment, he agreed to meet. They settled on a neutral place, a small cafe on the other side of town. The moment he walked in, he spotted her instantly. Time had changed her, but not enough to erase the familiarity. She still had that same poised posture, the same way she tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous. But there was something different too, something guarded in her expression, like she was bracing herself for a confrontation. She greeted him with an awkward smile. It has been a long time. He sat across from her, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. Yeah, it has. There was no small talk, no pleasantries about how life had been. Instead, she got straight to the point. She was getting married. That alone did not sting. People moved on. But what followed did. "I want her at the wedding," she said, her voice careful, measured. His stomach tightened. Her, their daughter, the same daughter she had abandoned without a second thought. Before he could respond, she continued, "It is important to me. I know I have not been around, but I want to fix things. I want her to be part of my new life." The audacity of it all made his blood boil. She had vanished without a word, left him to pick up the pieces, and now she expected to waltz back in and claim a picture-perfect reunion? Still, for his daughter's sake, he did not immediately shut it down. "You expect her to just accept this? Have you even considered what this might do to her?" "I will explain everything," she said quickly, as if that was enough. He stared at her, trying to piece together the real reason behind her sudden reappearance. That was when he noticed something odd. She was fidgeting, avoiding eye contact. She was hiding something. A silence stretched between them, heavy and unspoken. He could feel the shift in the air, like she was trying to find the right words, but knew whatever she said next could change everything. So, instead of rejecting her outright, he nodded slowly. "All right, I will think about it." But thinking about it was not enough. He needed answers. Agreeing to consider her request was not the same as agreeing to it. He needed to know more before making a decision, because something about her sudden return, her urgency, did not sit right with him. So he did some digging. It started with a casual question to their mutual acquaintances, most of whom had not heard from her in years. Some had even assumed she had left the country. Then, a search online led to her fiancé's business profile. A little more effort, and he found the missing puzzle piece. Her fiancé came from an influential family, one that prized image above all else. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. This was not about reconnecting with her daughter. It was about appearances. She was about to marry into wealth, and her past, her abandoned child, was an inconvenient stain that needed cleaning up. But the question that burned in his mind was, why now? If she truly regretted leaving, why had it taken 7 years? Why was she suddenly desperate for their daughter's forgiveness? As if there was some sort of deadline approaching. He decided to keep playing along, agreeing to another meeting, this time with their daughter involved. When they met again, his ex-wife was all smiles, acting like the past was nothing more than an unfortunate misunderstanding. Her eyes glistened, as if she were on the verge of tears, but her performance lacked sincerity. His daughter, however, was not as easily swayed. She sat stiffly across from her mother, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The first few minutes were an awkward mess of small talk, with his ex-wife weaving a sob story about how hard things had been for her. I was young. I was scared, she murmured, reaching for their daughter's hand, but she did not take it. I thought leaving was the best thing for everyone. I regret it every single day. His daughter did not react. She only stared, waiting. Then, the conversation took a turn. His ex-wife, perhaps too eager to smooth things over, let something slip. My fiancé knows everything, she said, her voice just a little too rehearsed. He understands that the past is complicated, but he also believes in second chances. It is why he wants us all to be there as a family at the wedding. Us all. That was it. The final piece. She did not want reconciliation. She wanted compliance. She needed to parade them in front of her future in-laws to prove she was not a terrible person, that she had not truly abandoned her child. It was all a carefully crafted lie, and they were supposed to play their parts in her redemption story. He exchanged a glance with his daughter, who, to her credit, looked as unimpressed as he felt. That was when he decided if she wanted to play games, then he would make sure she lost. His ex-wife sat there, her posture stiff, eyes darting between father and daughter, waiting for them to cave in to her requests. She had presented her case, one filled with regret and excuses, hoping that her emotional performance would melt their hearts. But all he felt was a cold, calculated certainty. He shifted in his chair, turning to his daughter, the decision weighing heavily on his mind. What do you think? He asked, his voice firm but gentle. His daughter's gaze didn't waver. She sat with her arms crossed, staring at her mother with a look that spoke volumes. Her jaw tightened, and he could see her pulse quicken, a mix of frustration and betrayal coursing through her. I think it is laughable, she said, her voice calm but edged with anger. How she says she regrets leaving, but not once has she even tried to make up for it. No phone calls, no letters, no attempts to fix things. Just poof, gone for 7 years. And now she wants me at her wedding? Why? So she can prove to everyone that I've forgiven her. Her words hung in the air like an accusation, and he saw his ex-wife flinch. His daughter wasn't the kind to sugarcoat things, and that was something he admired about her. His ex-wife's face turned pale as she reached for her glass, trying to steady her trembling hands. I just want to make things right, she said, her voice soft and pleading. We can all be a family again. Things can change. She looked directly at her daughter, her eyes filled with the desperation of someone who realized too late that they had lost everything. But his daughter wasn't having it. Do not call me that, she snapped, her voice sharper than he had ever heard it. You don't get to use that word. You don't get to act like a mother after everything you've done. The words stung, and for the first time in years, his ex-wife seemed unsure of herself. Her eyes flickered to him, as if silently begging for help. But he wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. He wasn't going to be the buffer between her and the consequences of her actions anymore. He leaned forward, his expression hardening. Let me stop you right there, he said, his voice cold and resolute. You didn't come back because you care about making things right. You came back because you need us. Your fiancé's family doesn't know you abandoned your daughter, do they? Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, her own guilt creeping up on her. She didn't want to admit it, but he could see the truth in her eyes. That's what I thought, he continued, his tone unwavering. You don't care about her or about us. You care about fixing your image, and I'm not going to let you do that on our backs. His daughter sat up straighter, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. You didn't even bother to show up for her birthday. You didn't even know she was in the hospital last month. You haven't been there for anything. So don't you dare sit there and act like you're suddenly trying to make amends. His ex-wife's lips quivered, but she didn't say anything. Her facade was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it now. You don't get to expect anything from us, he added, his voice stern. Not after everything you've put us through. Now you want us at your wedding, just so you can play the role of the devoted mother for everyone else? It's too late for that. The silence that followed was heavy, like a wall between them. His ex-wife looked defeated, but she wasn't ready to give up. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly. Please, can we just— No, his daughter interjected, standing up. Her voice was final. We are done here. You had your chance, and you blew it. Don't come asking for a second chance when you've never even tried to make it right. His ex-wife's eyes were wide with shock and perhaps a little fear, but he wasn't going to soften his stance. He had made a promise to his daughter years ago. He would never let anyone hurt her again, especially not her mother. He stood up, placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. We're leaving, he said, and you can figure out how to deal with the fallout on your own. As they turned to leave, he could feel his ex-wife's gaze boring into his back, but he didn't turn around. He wasn't interested in the drama she was trying to create. He had spent years picking up the broken pieces of his daughter's heart, and he wasn't going to let anyone, least of all her mother, break it again. His daughter walked beside him, her face set with resolve. It didn't matter how much his ex-wife begged or pleaded. It wouldn't change the fact that she had already lost them. And if she wanted any chance of being a part of their lives again, she had a lot of work ahead of her. He wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. And they both knew it. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.